She didn't need an ID badge. She didn't bring a laptop. All she needed was her husband's last name. I spent 18 months building a $2.1 billion system. She took just 2 minutes to sit in my chair. What they didn't know was that I had planted a kill switch right in the middle of that platform. And it was set to count down at exactly 5:01 p.m. My name is Jenna Langley. I'm a 30-year-old senior infrastructure engineer. And until this morning, I was the architect behind StreamlineX, the AI supply chain platform that was supposed to secure my future. The calendar notification lit up my phone at 7:30 a.m. Final demo Virion Global Partnership 2.1b. My stomach tightened with that familiar mix of pride and anxiety. 18 months of work culminating in a 2-hour presentation that would change everything. I had rehearsed this presentation 17 times. I knew every data point, every transition, every possible question. I arrived at Archmere Systems headquarters at 8:15 a.m., an hour and 45 minutes before the demo. The security guard nodded at me with his usual friendly smile, but something felt off. The usual pre-meeting buzz was missing from the office floor. Davey from IT passed me in the hallway, his eyes darting away when I smiled at him. Strange. He'd helped me set up the innovation gallery just yesterday, testing every port and connection twice. The first real warning came when I reached the conference room door. My name placard, Jenna Langley, Chief Architect, StreamlineX, was gone. In its place was an elegant, freshly printed card. Madeline Whitmore, Director of Global Systems. I stood frozen, coffee halfway to my lips. Madeline Whitmore, CEO, Richard Whitmore's daughter-in-law. The woman who'd attended exactly 2 project briefings in the past year and had asked if our tech stuff could be less complicated. Oh good, you're here early. I turned to see Vera from HR walking toward me, a manila envelope clutched in her hand. Her usual vibrant demeanor was replaced with professional detachment. There's been a structural realignment within the StreamlineX division, she said, her voice rehearsed. I need you to review these transition documents before the Virion meeting. My hands felt numb as I opened the envelope. Inside was a termination letter, effective immediately after the knowledge transfer period, which apparently ended today. My security access would be revoked at 6 p.m. My personal belongings would be packed and shipped. My 18 months of work, my 4 a.m. coding sessions, my architecture that made StreamlineX possible, all of it was being handed to someone whose primary qualification was marrying the CEO's son. This was signed 2 weeks ago, I said, pointing to Richard Whitmore's signature dated 14 days prior. The Virion deal wasn't even finalized then. Vera's eyes flickered with something pity. Perhaps. The transition has been in planning for some time. Madeline brings a fresh perspective on global systems integration. Translation. The family wanted her to have a prestigious title, and my project was the most impressive thing available. And what about the demo today? The Virion team has been working directly with me for months. Madeline has been fully briefed, Vera assured me, though her tone lacked conviction. You'll be present as technical support, of course, to ensure a smooth handover. As Vera walked away, my phone buzzed with a company-wide email. Archmere Systems is pleased to announce the appointment of Madeline Whitmore as Director of Global Systems. Madeline will be leading our groundbreaking partnership with Virion Global, showcasing our revolutionary StreamlineX platform. Please join us in congratulating Madeline on this exciting new role. The email continued with a paragraph about Madeline's visionary leadership and technical intuition, not a single mention of my name or contribution. Below this announcement was a second, smaller notice. We extend our thanks to Jenna Langley, who will be assisting in the documentation transfer as she pursues other opportunities. Jenna's technical input has been valuable during the development phase of StreamlineX. The development phase, as if I hadn't been the one who conceived, designed, and built the entire system. My phone began lighting up with private messages from colleagues, confusion, sympathy, outrage. But nobody challenged the decision publicly. Archmere Systems didn't become a Fortune 500 company by fostering dissent. I spent the next hour in a fog, mechanically answering questions from the demo team while watching my calendar invitations disappear one by one. My access to key documents began to vanish. Folders I'd created were suddenly restricted. Even the Streamline X source code repository showed an access pending message when I tried to open it. They were erasing me, methodically and efficiently. At 9:45 a.m., she arrived. Madeline Whitmore walked into the office wearing a cream designer suit, her blonde hair arranged in an elegant twist. She carried no laptop, no notebook, just a small designer handbag. She didn't badge in at security, someone held the door. She didn't stop to greet the team, they came to her, orbiting like anxious satellites. When she spotted me, she smiled with practiced warmth. "Jenna, I'm so excited to build on your work. Richard speaks so highly of your technical skills." The pause was subtle but unmistakable. Technical skills, not leadership, not vision. Just a useful set of abilities that had served their purpose. "I'm sure you have questions about the system," I offered, my voice steady despite the rage building in my chest. "Oh, I've been thoroughly briefed," she waved dismissively. "The technical details are in the documentation. I assume my focus will be on the strategic partnership aspects, the big picture. The big picture that I had meticulously constructed, pixel by pixel, for a year and a half." As the Virion executives began to arrive, I was directed to a chair in the corner of the room, not at the main table. The seat I'd expected to occupy presenting my life's best work was now filled by someone who couldn't explain the difference between our neural routing system and basic automation if her life depended on it. But what Madeline and the Archmere leadership didn't understand, what they couldn't possibly know, was that Streamline X wasn't just code and algorithms. It was my code, my algorithms. And I had built it with protections that went far beyond what appeared in any documentation. One of those protections was the Geo-Authority Protocol, a security feature that bound the system to specific geographic coordinates. Streamline X would only operate fully within the secure network of our main headquarters. Any attempt to move the system or access it from an unauthorized location would trigger a cascading shutdown. The demo today was scheduled for our headquarters, but yesterday, Richard Whitmore had proudly announced that we would be showcasing Streamline X at the newly completed Innovation Gallery, a gleaming, standalone structure on the Archmere campus designed to impress clients with theatrical lighting and surround sound capabilities. When that announcement came through, I had immediately flagged the potential issue with Marcus Holt, our finance director. The system has geographic restrictions. Moving it will trigger security protocols. Marcus had relayed my concerns upward, but the response came back quickly. "Madeline has reviewed the specifications and determined that this is a secondary feature that can be disabled for the demonstration. Except it couldn't be disabled, not completely. Not without my specific override sequence, a sequence documented nowhere except in my private notes." As the meeting room filled with executives and the Virion team, I sat quietly, watching the inevitable unfold. They were so confident, so certain of their control. They thought ownership equaled understanding. They were wrong. At 10:30 a.m. sharp, Richard Whitmore stood to welcome everyone. Today marks a historic partnership between Archmere Systems and Virion Global, our revolutionary Streamline X platform, under the leadership of our brilliant Director of Global Systems, Madeline Whitmore, will transform supply chain management as we know it. Madeline stood, accepting the introduction with practiced grace. "The journey to this moment has been extraordinary," she began, as if she'd been part of that journey for more than a few hours. "What our talented team has built is nothing short of revolutionary." Our talented team. The team they were dismantling even as she spoke. The morning proceeded with presentations from various executives. My role had been reduced to answering the occasional technical question, always deferring to Madeline for the strategic context. Each time I spoke, Richard Whitmore would nod impatiently, eager to return to the grand vision rather than the actual substance. At lunch, I found myself alone at the end of the buffet table until Marcus Holt approached, his voice low. "This is a mess," he said, glancing around to ensure we weren't overheard. "They're making a huge mistake." They seem confident in their decision. I replied neutrally. Too confident. Marcus's face was grim. They truly believe the system will work perfectly at the Innovation Gallery. I tried to explain your concerns again, but Madeline insisted she'd fixed the location issue. Did she explain how? I asked, already knowing the answer. Something about disabling protocols in the admin panel. He shook his head. Is that even possible? There is an admin setting, I confirmed, but it's only the first layer. The core geo-authentication is hard-coded at the foundation level. Understanding dawned on Marcus's face. So at 5:01, when they try to run the full system demo at the Innovation Gallery, yes, the geo-authentication will fail, and the system will initiate shutdown protocols. Jesus, Marcus whispered. The entire Virion executive team will be watching. Yes, I said quietly. They will. Marcus studied my face. You could tell them. Warn them. I've been trying to warn them for weeks about the geographic restrictions. They've ignored every email, every meeting request. I kept my voice even. And as of this morning, I've been removed from all project communication channels. He nodded slowly, understanding the impossible position I'd been placed in. What will you do now? It was a good question. What does one do after being erased? After watching 18 months of work that had consumed weekends, evenings, holidays being handed to someone else to claim credit for. I think I'll start by collecting my things, I said, my decision crystallizing even as I spoke. And then I'm going to make some calls. The afternoon proceeded with excruciating slowness. I was both invisible and under surveillance. No one spoke to me directly, but eyes followed my every movement. At 3:30 p.m., the entire group began migrating toward the Innovation Gallery for the system demonstration scheduled at 5:30 p.m. I was not invited to join them. Instead, Vera from HR approached me again, this time with a cardboard box. We've expedited your transition package, she said, handing me another envelope. Your final paycheck, information about continuation of benefits, and your NDA reminder. She emphasized those last two words carefully. Given the sensitivity of today's presentation, we feel it's best if you conclude your time with us now. My access doesn't expire until 6 p.m., I pointed out. Yes, well, circumstances change. She didn't quite meet my eyes. Security will escort you to collect personal items from your desk. As a burly security guard named Dale, someone who had greeted me cheerfully every morning for 2 years, awkwardly followed me to my workspace. I maintained my composure. I carefully packed my few personal effects: a photo of my parents, a small plant, a coffee mug given to me by the development team last Christmas. What Archmere didn't realize was that I didn't need access to their systems anymore. The damage, if that's what they would call it, was already done. Not by any malicious action on my part, but by their own arrogance and ignorance. At 4:15 p.m., I walked out of Archmere Systems for the last time, the cardboard box light in my arms. As Dale held the door open for me, he quietly said, "This isn't right, Ms. Langley." No, I agreed, it isn't. Instead of going home, I drove to a small coffee shop 3 blocks away. I ordered a latte, opened my personal laptop, and made a call to Evelyn Ray, a securities attorney I'd consulted with 2 weeks earlier when I first discovered through a mistakenly copied email that plans were being made to replace me. It's happening, I told her when she answered, exactly as we discussed. Are you certain you want to proceed? Evelyn asked, her voice serious. Once we initiate, there's no going back. I'm certain, I replied. They've already shown their hand. Now it's time to show mine. Over the next 30 minutes, I set in motion the contingency plan I'd developed, not out of malice or revenge, but out of a determination not to be discarded so easily and to protect what I had built from those who didn't understand its value. First, I submitted the incorporation papers for EcoTerra Ventures, a company I had established quietly 2 weeks ago. Second, I activated the blind trust purchasing agreements that Evelyn had arranged legal structures that would allow EcoTerra to acquire Archmere Systems stock automatically when certain conditions were met. Third, I sent a detailed report to the Securities and Exchange Commission documenting potential securities violations at Archmere, particularly regarding the misrepresentation of technological capabilities to investors and partners. And finally, I waited. At precisely 5:01 p.m., in the gleaming Innovation Gallery across town, Madeline Whitmore would be standing before the Virion Global executives, preparing to demonstrate the revolutionary capabilities of Streamline X. She would activate the system, confident in her authority as Director of Global Systems. And at that exact moment, the system would detect the geographic authentication failure. Warning messages would flood the screens, access permissions would be denied. The carefully rehearsed demonstration would collapse into chaos. At 5:02 p.m., my phone began to vibrate continuously. Text messages, phone calls, emails, all from Archmere employees witnessing the meltdown in real time. From Marcus, complete system failure. Madeline can't explain what's happening. Virion CEO is livid. From Davey in IT, dashboard showing Geo Authority breach. Nobody can override it. Is this fixable? For E? From another developer, Richard is demanding we call you. Do you want me to give them your number? I didn't respond to any of them. Instead, I watched the financial alerts beginning to populate my screen. Archmere Systems stock, which had been climbing steadily in anticipation of the Virion partnership announcement, had begun to fall. Investors, somehow already getting wind of the failed demonstration, were selling. At 5:17 p.m., I received an email from Richard Whitmore himself. Jenna, there appears to be a critical issue with the Streamline X demonstration. We require your immediate assistance to resolve this situation. Please call me urgently at the number below. No apology. No acknowledgement of their error. Just an expectation that I would rush to save them from a disaster of their own making. I didn't call. At 5:23 p.m., a press release crossed the wire. Virion Global invokes contingency clause in Archmere partnership. The statement indicated that if the technical issues could not be resolved within 60 minutes, Virion would exercise their right to withdraw from the agreement. The stock began to plummet faster. At 5:30 p.m., I received another email, this time from Madeline Whitmore. Ms. Langley, I understand there may have been some confusion regarding the transition of Streamline X leadership. If you could assist us with the current technical difficulties, I would be personally grateful and would ensure your contribution is appropriately recognized going forward. Too little, too late. By 5:32 p.m., Archmere's stock had fallen 34% from its opening price. And that's when the automated purchasing agreements kicked in. Echo Terra Ventures began acquiring shares at an accelerated rate through various proxy entities. Given the speed and volume of overall trading, these purchases weren't immediately noticeable in the chaos. At 5:47 p.m., an official announcement came from Virion Global. They were formally withdrawing from the partnership agreement, citing irreconcilable technical deficiencies in the Streamline X platform. By 6:00 p.m., when my Archmere access was officially scheduled to expire, Echo Terra Ventures had acquired controlling interest in 51.2% of Archmere's voting shares purchased at panic prices from fleeing investors. I closed my laptop, left the coffee shop, and drove home. Tomorrow would be a day of reckoning, but tonight I needed to prepare. The next morning, I woke to find Archmere Systems in full crisis mode. The stock had continued its freefall in after-hours trading. Financial news sites were running headlines about the Archmere implosion and the Streamline X disaster. Analysts were questioning how a company could so catastrophically misrepresent its technical capabilities to a major partner. I dressed carefully in a crisp black suit, one I'd bought for the Virion presentation, but never had the chance to wear. I drove back to Archmere Systems headquarters, this time parking in the spot reserved for the CEO. As I walked through the lobby, the security guard stared in confusion. Dale, who had escorted me out just yesterday, opened his mouth to stop me, then seemed to think better of it when he saw the determination in my eyes. I took the elevator directly to the executive floor. Richard Whitmore's assistant jumped to her feet as I approached. Ms. Langley, Mr. Whitmore has been trying to reach you desperately. He's in an emergency board meeting right now. Perfect, I said, walking past her toward the boardroom. That's exactly who I need to see. I pushed open the door to find the Archmere Board of Directors in a state of barely controlled panic. Financial reports were projected on screens around the room. Richard Whitmore stood at the head of the table, his face ashen. Madeline sat nearby, her perfect composure from yesterday now completely shattered. The conversation stopped abruptly as I entered. Richard's face cycled through confusion, relief, and then wariness. "Jenna," he said, attempting to regain his authoritative tone. "We've been trying to reach you. The Streamline X system has experienced a critical failure." "Not a failure," I corrected calmly. "A security protocol functioning exactly as designed and documented." "You need to fix it immediately," he demanded. "The damage to this company—" "I'm not here as an employee," I interrupted. "I'm here as the new majority shareholder." A stunned silence fell over the room. I nodded to Evelyn Ray, who had entered behind me with a team of attorneys. "Allow me to introduce Echo Terra Ventures," I continued, "which now controls 51.2% of Archmere's voting shares. My first act as controlling shareholder is to call for an immediate vote of no confidence in the current leadership." Over the next hour, as the board struggled to comprehend the sudden reversal of fortune, Evelyn presented the legal documentation confirming Echo Terra's controlling position. She also distributed copies of my SEC report detailing how Archmere had misrepresented Streamline X's capabilities, particularly after removing its primary architect. "This isn't legal," Richard sputtered. "It's corporate espionage." "On the contrary," Evelyn replied smoothly. "Ms. Langley disclosed the geographic authentication requirements multiple times in official documentation. Your team chose to ignore those warnings. That's not espionage, that's negligence. And as for the stock acquisition," I added, "everything was done through proper channels, using my personal funds and those of silent partners who recognized the value of what I built, even if Archmere's leadership did not." One by one, the board members began to understand the new reality. Some looked angry, others calculating, a few almost impressed. "What do you want?" Richard finally asked, his voice hollow. "First, your resignation, effective immediately. Second, Madeline's resignation from any role related to Streamline X. Third, a complete restructuring of the executive team to prioritize technical expertise over family connections." Richard's face flushed with anger. "You can't just walk in here and—" "I can and I am." I cut him off. "But don't worry, Richard. Unlike you, I believe in giving people proper notice. You have until the end of the day to clear your office." As the implications sank in, Madeline stood abruptly. "This is ridiculous. I'm not going to sit here and be threatened by an employee." "Former employee," I corrected. "And you're right about one thing, you won't be sitting here much longer." The board meeting dissolved into chaos after that. Some directors immediately aligned themselves with me, sensing which way the wind was blowing. Others threatened legal action, only to be calmly countered by Evelyn with documentation of their own oversight failures. By noon, the news had spread throughout the company. The stock had stabilized somewhat as word leaked that a technical founder had taken control. I spent the afternoon in a series of meetings with key team members, reassuring them about the company's future and listening to the frustrations many had kept hidden under Richard's leadership. At 3:30 p.m., I entered what had been Richard's office, now cleared of his personal items, and sat behind the desk. The first person I called in was Ava Collins, a brilliant young programmer who had been repeatedly passed over for promotion despite creating several core components of Streamline X. "I don't understand," she said, sitting nervously across from me. "Why am I here?" "Because I'm appointing you as our new Chief Technology Officer." I told her, "You understand this system better than anyone except me, and you've earned this position many times over." Her eyes widened. "But I'm just a talented engineer who should have been recognized long ago." I finished for her. "This company's success was built on technical innovation, not family connections. It's time we returned to those roots." Throughout the afternoon, I met with other overlooked talents within the company, primarily women and minorities who had been kept from leadership despite their contributions. By the end of the day, I had assembled a new executive team that actually understood the products they would be managing. At 4:45 p.m., I received a message that Madeline wanted to see me. Against my better judgment, I agreed. She entered cautiously, her earlier arrogance replaced with calculation. "I think we got off on the wrong foot," she began. "We could work together, you know. I have connections that could be valuable to you." "Connections aren't what this company needs," I replied. "It needs people who understand what they're selling." "Don't be naive," she scoffed. "Tech is only part of the equation. You need someone who can move in the right circles, who knows how to present things properly." I studied her for a moment. "Tell me, Madeline, without looking at any notes, can you explain how Streamline X's neural routing differs from standard automation sequencing?" She blinked rapidly. "That's getting into the weeds. My role is more about the big picture." "The big picture is built from those weeds." I cut her off. "And if you can't understand the foundation, you have no business representing it. Your resignation letter is already drafted. All you need to do is sign it." She stared at me, anger flashing in her eyes. "You won't last 6 months. People like you never do." "Perhaps," I acknowledged. "But that's 6 months longer than you lasted in front of Virion Global." After she stormed out, I turned my attention to rebuilding what had been broken. The Virion partnership was lost, at least for now, but Streamline X itself remained revolutionary. With proper leadership and honest representation of its capabilities, we could recover. That evening, as the office emptied, I stood at the window of what was now my office, looking out at the innovation gallery where everything had fallen apart just 24 hours earlier. The irony wasn't lost on me. The very security feature that they had dismissed as unnecessary had become the instrument of their downfall. My phone buzzed with a message from Marcus Holt. "Boardroom restructuring vote complete. You're officially CEO. Congratulations." CEO, not something I had ever aspired to be. My passion had always been building, creating, solving impossible problems. But sometimes the most impossible problem is people who undervalue what they don't understand. The next morning, I arrived early to find the Archmere Systems logo already being removed from the lobby. In its place, workers were installing a new sign, Echo Terra Ventures. Over the following weeks, we rebuilt, not just the company's reputation, but its culture. I established the Blueprint Initiative, a fund specifically designated for overlooked innovations within the company. Anyone could submit ideas, regardless of their position, and promising concepts received immediate resources. I rehired several talented individuals who had left under Richard's leadership, including my former mentor, Dr. Sophia Lin, who became our Chief Research Officer. Together, we restructured Streamline X, preserving its revolutionary capabilities while making it more accessible and secure. 2 months after the takeover, I received an unexpected call from Victor Chen, the CEO of Virion Global. "Ms. Langley," he said when I answered, "I've been following Ecoterra's transformation with great interest." "Thank you," I replied cautiously. "We've been working hard to realign with our technical foundations." "So I've heard." In fact, our technical team has been quite impressed with the new transparency regarding Streamline X's capabilities and limitations. He paused. "We might be interested in revisiting our partnership discussions, under proper technical guidance this time." The irony was almost too perfect. "We'd be open to that conversation," I told him. "Though our valuation has changed significantly since our last discussion." "I would expect nothing less," he replied with a chuckle. "Shall we say next week, and Ms. Langley, I look forward to meeting the actual architect this time." 6 months after what financial news had dubbed the 501 collapse, Echo Terra Ventures had not only stabilized, but thrived. Our stock price had recovered and then doubled as investors recognized the value of authentic technical leadership. Streamline X had been successfully deployed with 3 major partners, including, eventually, Virion Global at a valuation of $3.4 billion. On the anniversary of my unceremonious dismissal from Archmere, I stood in the completely redesigned Innovation Gallery, now transformed into a collaborative workspace for our development teams. The old corporate hierarchy had been replaced with a structure that valued expertise over titles, contribution over connections. Ava approached, tablet in hand. "The Q3 numbers are in," she said, unable to contain her smile. "We've exceeded projections by 27%. Well done," I told her, genuinely proud of what she had accomplished as CTO. "I knew you could do it." "It wasn't me," she insisted. "It was the team. When people feel valued for their actual contributions, amazing things happen." As she walked away, I reflected on the journey of the past year. What Richard and Madeline had never understood was that true power in a technology company doesn't come from titles or family connections or corner offices. It comes from understanding deeply, fundamentally, what you've built and why it matters. I never framed what happened as revenge, though many in the industry viewed it that way. I prefer to think of it as a correction, a realignment of value with contribution. A reminder that in the world of innovation, understanding is the only currency that truly matters. Later that day, as I was leaving the office, I passed the wall where we displayed the company's core principles I'd written myself in the weeks after taking control. Innovation is built by hands that understand. Value comes from creation, not position. Leadership means knowing what you don't know. Success is measured by impact, not title. And at the bottom, in slightly smaller text, never mistake ownership for understanding. It wasn't revenge, it was reclamation. The reclamation of value by those who created it. And in that reclamation, something better had emerged, a company where innovation was celebrated, regardless of who conceived it, or where technical excellence wasn't subordinate to family connections, where understanding was the most valuable currency of all. As I walked to my car, my phone buzzed with a notification, an email from Richard Whitmore, the first contact since his resignation. "I underestimated you, a mistake I won't make twice." I smiled slightly as I typed my response, echoing the words Madeline had once dismissed. "Don't worry about the security protocols, they're probably just for show." I didn't need his acknowledgement. I didn't need anyone's validation but my own. The true power was never in the title or the corner office or the presentation to Virion Global. It was in understanding what I had built, down to its very foundation. Understanding that no one could take away. Some might call what happened at 5:01 p.m. a collapse. I call it a correction. A realignment of power with knowledge. A reminder that in the world of technology, those who build hold the true keys whether others recognize it or not. Don't call it revenge, call it reclaiming authorship.